We ventured deep beneath the sand-blasted silence of ancient Egypt, where something strange might be buried. Beneath the golden dunes and beneath the familiar textbook history, something older, stranger, maybe even extraterrestrial. You'll feel the dry air sting your nose, the soft crunch of your steps against sand and shattered limestone. And you'll wonder who really built all of this? Some say Egypt's monuments were born from nothing but manpower, sweat, and clever pulleys. But others, well, they glance up at the stars and wonder if the blueprints came from somewhere a little farther away. You'll follow their theories tonight, drifting through chambers into myths and across galaxies. You probably won't survive this if you're hoping for simple answers. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know your location and local time down in the comments. I'm curious where you're re-listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You are standing at the edge of the Sahara, just as the last light slips off the limestone skin of the Great Pyramid. Giza doesn't hum with tourists now. It breathes like something alive, its geometry catching twilight like a sundial built for giants. Your guide me, for tonight says nothing at first. You both stare. A desert breeze snakes around you. It carries sand and rumor. And the rumors say this: the pyramids aren't just tombs. They're messages, coordinates, maybe even machines. That idea, as ridiculous as it sounds at first blush, isn't exactly new. It's older than the internet and weirder than any textbook will admit, because the question has always lingered. How? How did a civilization over 4,000 years ago, without cranes or steel tools, align stone blocks with such uncanny precision that even today, GPS satellites struggle to outperform them? The Great Pyramid is aligned to true north within 1/15 of a degree. That's not close. That's suspicious. And you can almost hear it beneath the wind and sand, the slow, rhythmic groan of something awakening. Maybe that's just your heartbeat. Mainstream historians will tell you the pyramid was a tomb for Pharaoh Khufu, that tens of thousands of workers, not slaves, camped here seasonally to build a monument of divine power and political stability. They'll point to burial shafts and scribbles left by labor gangs. And yes, that's true. All of that is true. But truth, like sand, shifts with pressure, because there are other details they gloss over. Like how the base of the Great Pyramid isn't just wide, it's almost mathematically perfect. Each side measures within mere inches of the others. The entire foundation gently curves with the Earth's surface, which according to popular belief should have been impossible knowledge for Bronze Age masons. Then there's the internal temperature. No matter how scorching the sun, or how bitter the desert wind, the interior stays constant at about 20 degrees Celsius. Air-conditioned before the concept existed. Coincidence? Maybe, but if you keep stacking coincidences high enough, don't they start to look like blueprints? And here's where things start to drift into the twilight zone. There are no real blueprints. There's no schematics. There's no carving on a wall that says, Step 1. Drag 70-ton granite blocks uphill with rope. In fact, the pyramid kind of ... just appears. It's fully formed in history. No prototypes, no smaller test versions. Just boom. Perfection on the first try. You run your fingers along a weathered limestone block, smooth, unnervingly so, as though the stones were once molten. Ancient texts from nearby temples describe gods who descended from the sky on flying boats and instructed the people. Thoth, the ibis-headed god of wisdom, was said to bring divine knowledge and geometry. Osiris came from Sirius, the dog star, and Ra, he didn't walk. He piloted a solar barca, glowing chariot-like vessel through the heavens. But maybe it's all metaphor. Maybe. Then again, one of the oldest creation myths in Egypt, from the city of Heliopolis, tells of a Benbun stone falling from the heavens. This stone, gleaming and conical, supposedly landed in the primeval waters and became the first mound of earth, the foundation for all life. And guess what shape that stone was? Yeah, pyramid. Now here's your fringe tidbit for the night. In 1994, a team of amateur researchers claimed to have found an electromagnetic anomaly at the apex of the Great Pyramid, like it was channeling or focusing energy. No one could replicate it exactly, and the mainstream rolled its eyes. But you still wonder what if the pyramid wasn't just a tomb, but a transmitter. Historians still argue whether the pyramid's internal shafts, which don't seem to connect anything practical, serve spiritual purposes, ventilation, or if you're feeling cheeky, were designed to align with star systems, like Orion's belt, which, by the way, fits almost perfectly with the layout of the pyramids at Giza. Accident architecture? Or a cosmic invitation? You glance up. The sky is dark now. Orion gleams like silver tattoos across the black. The belt stars hang in eerie mimicry above the ancient stones. Perfectly placed, maybe intentionally, maybe not. But the coincidence burns your spine, so you begin walking. Into the silence. Into the cool, yawning passage of the pyramid. One step, then another. You don't know where it leads. Yet, but it feels less like history and more like a story, someone buried on purpose. The tunnel narrows. Each step echoes a little too long. Your hand slides along the wall, grazing time itself. Blocks of limestone stacked so tightly, not even a razor blade can fit between them. No mortar, just pressure. Just impossibly tight geometry. You try not to think about how this was done in 2560 BCE, or how many lives were spent inside this corridor before you. You're deep inside the Great Pyramid now, surrounded by dense stone and deeper questions. This place isn't decorative, it's functional, but for what? You arrive at the Grand Gallery, tall, sloping, almost theatrical. The ceiling rises high above you in tiered stone layers, as though the architecture is gently encouraging your eyes to look up, and maybe beyond. Your flashlight flickers, illuminating grooves in the wall. Too precise for ancient tools, too symmetrical to be random. Some think these were simply channels to slide giant blocks into place. Others suggest energy conduits, parts of a machine. Or, if you like your theories with extra spice, landing coordinates. Let's take a detour not in your steps, but in your thoughts. Imagine a civilization trying to send a message across time, not a letter, not a sculpture, but a structure. Something so large and so exact, no one could mistake it for chance. You're standing in that message now. The Great Pyramid, as a monument, doesn't just look impressive, it encodes measurements. Earth's radius, the solar year, the golden ratio. Coincidence? Math nerds love to argue about that. Some claim the numbers have been cherry-picked. Others insist the correlations are too tight to ignore. Historians still argue whether the pyramid's dimensions reflect advanced understanding or are simply the result of intuitive craftsmanship and brute force. But one particular ratio keeps popping up. Pi. That's right. The relationship between the pyramid's base perimeter and its height approximates 2, as if its builders were trying to square the circle using stone. Neat trick, for people with no written numerals yet. You lean against a granite slab. It hums only in your imagination, probably. But it feels like something wants to wake up here. Then comes the real kicker, the King's Chamber. That's where you're headed next. Deep inside, no murals, no gold, no hieroglyphs. It's just a stark granite box in a sterile room of precisely cut stone. It's austere, eerie, and wildly different from every other pharaonic tomb we've found. Where are the grand carvings? It's the afterlife instructions? The buried wealth? Here's where the fringe folks perk up. Some claim that box isn't a sarcophagus, it's a resonance chamber. That the dimensions of the King's Chamber align with sound frequencies, harmonic ratios, that chanting or tone generation might have activated something. Sound-based tech. Acoustic levitation. Ancient surround sound. Cue the theremin music. Quirky side note. In 1837, British explorer Colonel Howard Viz used gunpowder to blast his way into the upper, relieving chambers above the King's Chamber. He found some painted hieroglyphs, including a cartouche of Khufu, the pharaoh credited with building the pyramid. It's the main reason we attribute the structure to him. Problem is, some argue the markings look suspiciously modern, as if someone wanted to retroactively label this structure. Were they forged? We don't know. It's not impossible. The 19th century wasn't exactly a beacon of academic rigor. Still, mainstream scholars defend the Khufu theory. The work gangs left graffiti with his name. There's some consistency with nearby boat pits and valley temples. But something about the pyramid itself still feels off. Too much for one man. so exact for his time. You duck into a narrow tunnel, feeling a change in air pressure. A rush of cooler air greets you. That's weird. You're supposed to be sealed inside a stone mountain, yet here's a breeze, whispering past your ears like someone or something is still breathing down here. Maybe they never left. You reach the Queen's chamber, another strange room halfway up the pyramid with shafts that aim nowhere, maybe somewhere we can't reach anymore. A robotic camera sent up one of those shafts in 1993 found a small stone door with copper handles. When a second robot drilled through in 2002, it revealed another door, just a block, another wall, a cosmic game of hide-and-seek. Theories blossomed. Was it symbolic? A passage to the stars, blocked for safety? Or was it, as some fringe researchers say, a sealed container maybe holding records from another world? That's what Project Jetty was hoping to find before funding ran out, and the Egyptian authorities changed their minds about letting people drill holes in sacred walls. And speaking of sacred, this whole structure might be a scale model of Earth itself. Some propose that if you multiply the pyramid's height by 43,200, you get the polar radius of the Earth. And if you multiply the base by the same number, you get the equatorial circumference. That number, 43,200, isn't random, it's rooted in precession. The slow wobble of the Earth's axis over 25,920 years, a cycle the ancients weren't supposed to know about. But there it is, encoded in stone. For fun? For faith? Or for someone else to find? You pause in the chamber and close your eyes. The silence isn't silent at all. You hear the whispers of granite blocks, sigh of a civilization trying to outlive time. And maybe, just maybe, the low-frequency hum of something you can't explain. You don't need to believe in aliens to feel like you're not alone. Because whether it was physics, faith, or little green engineers, someone built this place to last. And you're here now, listening to it breathe. You climb back into the open air just before sunrise. The desert is cool, but the sky is already burning faint pink behind the horizon. Like someone lit a slow fuse across the edge of the earth. You exhale and stretch, eyes still adjusting after the dim interior of the Great Pyramid. For a moment you wonder if what you felt back there was real, or just the hypnotic rhythm of shadows and silence playing tricks on your brain. But the pyramids aren't alone. You turn and there it is, the Temple of Edfu. Not as famous as Giza, but maybe more important if you're looking for clues. Its walls are covered in hieroglyphs, thousands. But one specific set of inscriptions stands out. The so-called creation text records of the first time, or Zep Tepi as the Egyptians called it. It's not just a poetic origin story. It's eerily structured like a manual. These texts describe a time when sky beings arrived, settled in the Nile Valley, and taught the early people everything they needed to build civilization. They brought writing, architecture, laws, astronomy. Sound familiar? The Egyptian gods weren't just deities. Many were depicted as engineers, architects, pilots. Take Thoth, god of wisdom, time, and measurement. He's always carrying a writing palette and a long reed, often accompanied by a sacred tablet said to contain all cosmic knowledge. The Emerald Tablet, some call it, and it was said to come from the stars. Even weirder? Thoth was sometimes associated with the moon and the planet Mercury, both symbols of guidance and messages from beyond. Historians still argue whether these mythological tales were meant to be allegories for evolving civilization or coded memories of real contact. And yes, real contact here means exactly what you're thinking. Now, there's Osiris, king of the underworld. Sure, but before he was the judge of the dead, he was a civilizer. According to ancient legend, Osiris arrived from across the sea in a shining boat without sails, taught people how to farm, and then ... left. Some say he promised to return. Others think he never left, just went underground. You know, like a galactic consultant who got tired of explaining irrigation. You wander now between tall columns, their lotus capitals blackened by time but still proud. You run your fingers along the wall. One carving stops you cold. A tall humanoid figure, maybe Osiris, stands beneath a star-covered dome, reaching toward a sphere hovering above him. You blink. It looks like a planet, a ship, an old stone dream. Fringe theorists love this stuff. They call these the sky god architects. And they point out that nearly every major Egyptian deity was connected to a star or planet. Isis, the goddess of magic and motherhood, her star was Sirius, the brightest in our sky. Horus was linked to the sun itself. Anubis, lord of embalming, had ties to Orion. The heavens weren't just up there, they were home. An address, possibly even a launch pad. Want something quirkier? There's an old story passed down through some Coptic Christian oral traditions. Not exactly canonical, but persistent. It claims that the earliest temples weren't just worship sites, they were recharging stations. For the gods. For something not entirely human. The idea of divine boats docking, drawing energy, then soaring back toward Sirius wasn't metaphor. It was itinerary. And Sirius, by the way, plays a bigger role than most modern people realize. The ancient Egyptians watched it obsessively. The entire calendar revolved around its heliacal rising, when it appeared above the horizon just before dawn, signaling the start of the Nile's flood. In fact, the Sothic cycle, named for Sirius's Egyptian name Soptit, was considered a cosmic clock. Awfully specific tracking for a bright in the sky. Now picture this. You're a farmer in 3000 BCE, planting barley with a stick. How do you even know Sirius is coming? How do you track it so precisely year after year, especially during a time when your neighbors still think the stars are just random pinpricks in a cosmic sheet? Historians still argue whether this kind of knowledge was passed down by observation, or if deep breath it came from older lost civilizations ... or elsewhere. And sure, most mainstream scholars prefer they were brilliant and patient explanation, which is valid. But then why do these star beings keep popping up across so many unrelated cultures? Back in the temple, a cracked pillar shows Horus flying not just in his falcon form, but standing inside a circular device with winged extensions. It looks more like an escape pod than a bird. Your sleepy brain squints. Is that just religious symbolism, or are we looking at a badly eroded blueprint? And here's your historical anchor for this section. The city of Heliopolis. Once the spiritual heart of sun worship in Egypt was entirely built around a single concept, the union of sky and earth, its main obelisk. Still standing today was thought to mark the spot where the Benbon stone descended from the heavens, a divine GPS pin. That same stone became the prototype for the pyramidion, the small pointed cap placed on top of pyramids and obelisks. A marker, a signal, a possible docking beacon, just saying. As the sun finally crests the horizon, you feel its warmth stretch across your face. The temple behind you glows faintly orange. But your mind's still up there hovering above, among the stars, following gods who may not have been gods at all, just travelers, instructors, passers-by with plans and a few spare blueprints. You take a breath. Deeper this time. Because you're starting to wonder if history isn't just written by the victors. Maybe it's written by the visitors too. The sun climbs higher, but your thoughts drift further into shadow. You're standing now in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, in a room that feels colder than it should be. It's not because of the air conditioning, but because of what's staring back at you. A golden mask. Huge, serene, haunting, Tutankhamun. The Boy King. Probably Egypt's most famous pharaoh, though he barely ruled a decade and did very little historically significant. Except die young, leave behind a sealed tomb, and captivate the entire world. His burial was packed with treasure. But fringe researchers aren't obsessed with the gold. They're fixated on his body and the bodies of other pharaohs, especially from one strange, short-lived dynasty. You lean closer, the skull beneath that glittering mask, slightly elongated, subtle but noticeable. Just like the skulls of his father Akhenaten and his probable mother, Queen Kia. Long heads, thin necks, wide hips, narrow chins, and oddly large eyes. You're not about to scream alien just yet, but admit it, two are listening now. This brings us to something that often gets buried in school books. The royal mummy anomalies. Several pharaohs in the 18th dynasty exhibit features that don't match the rest of the population. Not just stylistically, in their statues and carvings biologically. CT scans of Tutankhamun's mummy reveal irregularities in his skull. Some have chalked it up to inbreeding, which was common among royal families trying to maintain a pure bloodline. But what if that purity was something else? A lineage of visitors. Historians still argue whether these features were artistic exaggerations or literal depictions. Traditional scholars lean toward symbolism. They weren't supposed to look human. They were supposed to look divine. But here's where things get weird. The more divine they were made to look, the more alien they appeared. And not alien as in strange, alien as in elongated heads, almond eyes, tiny mouths. You move past Tut's mask to a darker corner of the exhibit, a statue of Akhenaten. You can't take your eyes off it. This guy ruled like a cosmic hipster. He ditched Egypt's entire pantheon of gods, especially the bigwigs like Amun-Ra, and instituted monotheism, the worship of one being, Aten, the disk of the sun. But Aten wasn't just the sun itself. In the art of the time, it's shown as a radiant circle shining down beams, each beam ending in a tiny hand, reaching toward Akhenaten and his family. It looks less like sunlight, more like a focused energy source, a spotlight, or maybe a tractor beam, and Akhenaten himself, not your average pharaoh. His art shows a lanky body, exaggerated facial features, a soft belly. Some say he had Marfan syndrome or another genetic disorder. Others think his appearance was intentionally alien in an attempt to distinguish him as part god, part something else. Here's your quirky tidbit. There's a theory, lovingly ignored by academia, that Akhenaten wasn't just unusual, he was a hybrid. Half human, half star being, a go-between. The first real divine ruler, genetically engineered by visitors to test humanity's ability to evolve. He changed everything, and unsurprisingly he was overthrown within a generation. His son Tutankhamun quietly reversed all of it. The old gods returned. The Aten cult was erased. The statues remain. And so does the lingering suspicion that someone tried to rewrite reality and got caught doing it. You walk into a different gallery now, dimly lit, filled with sarcophagi and canopic jars. And something clicks. The Egyptians were obsessed with preserving the body. The soul, yes, but the body was the priority. Why? Why not burn it like so many other cultures? Because the body, according to their belief, was needed for the return. The afterlife wasn't a cloud-based vacation. It was a literal journey through the stars aboard Ra's solar bark. Your body was the vessel, preserved, wrapped tight, like cargo, like stasis. You feel a chill as you pass a wall display of funerary amulets. Many are shaped like scarabs or ankhs. But one looks oddly like a flight badge. A winged disc with outstretched feathers and two coiling snakes resembling propulsion jets, if you're generous. Or just artistic license, if you're not. You take another look at the mummy sketches, those elongated skulls. And then your brain whispers another name. The Star Child. Found in Mexico. But eerily similar, an anomalously shaped skull with a brain cavity too large for its size, eye sockets too shallow for human tissue. Not Egyptian, but related. Some researchers claim there's a global pattern of these skulls, not widespread, but clustered, elongated, high-volume craniums, paracas in Peru, some tribes in Africa, the Egyptian royals. Yes, some were artificially shaped, binding the heads of infants. But others? Bone scans show internal cranial structures that defy shaping. Born this way, not molded. Historians still argue whether this was a style choice, a tribal status symbol, or something more innate, passed down through bloodlines that knew something we forgot. You find a bench, sit down, breathe. That gold mask is watching you again from across the room. Tutankhamun, the boy king, the child of a heretic pharaoh and a vanishing queen. Buried in a hurry, his tomb unfinished, but sealed tightly, as if someone human or not didn't want anyone asking too many questions. Too late for that now. The museum closes in an hour. But your mind? Wide open, racing. Not just with facts, but with connections, shapes, shadows. That whisper from history that says, we came, we stayed a while, we'll be back.